what are you going to need? You're going to need your sonic logs, your VP and VS, at least your VP log. I mean your your VP log. So compressive sonic log. So that's the minimum you're going to need. You're going to need your density log. You're going to need a porosity log. Usually people calculate their porosity logs off their density log. So that's, I mean, usually if you don't have that, a porosity log, you can get that from a density log. You need to know some knowledge of your fluid. I mean, you're talking about lab results. I mean, knowledge in that area, things like that. You need to know your lithology composition as well. And this is the part that is quite crucial, is the condition of the logs. The condition of the logs can make a large difference. You have to be able to, you need to condition this log. And in the first part of our series, we talked about some of the tools we can use in LogM to condition our logs and get it ready for analysis like this. Now, once we've gotten that out of the way, what we need, I'm going to show you what the workflow I'm going to use today in this demo, and then interactively I'm going to try to achieve all of this. And at the end of the day, at the end of the session, I'll be very open to questions. What I plan to do is to start out by creating a shear velocity curve from knowledge of my fluid, lithology, and VPVS strands. This is because in the data set I don't have a VS curve, and I need that. If you do have a VS curve, then that wouldn't be necessary. You can go ahead and then you can start doing your calculations. Now, I was going to perform some fluid substitution in the zone of interest. I'm going to have I'm going to have a gas sand with wet shell. So that's the environment I'm going to be. It's going to be wet in the shell area, and then I'm going to put gas in the sand region. I'm going to fluid substitute the gas with other fluids. I'm going to make it wet. I'm going to make it light oil as well, and I'm going to see what the effect is on the curves. Now, once I've done all of that, I'm going to try to build some AVO stacks with it, with the fluid substituted curves. So I'm going to have multiple curves of different scenarios, and then I'm going to show you how you can do some fluid substitution, some AVO. I mean, how you can build AVO stacks with the different curves that you have. Once we've done those, we'll talk about seismic cross sections and how the LogM modeling handles those, and we'll show you I'll show you the effect of stratigraphy, and then I'll show you how the trace generation works. And then I'm going to round up with building a wedge model, and then we can then convene and have a conclusion moving forward. At this point, we're going to go dive into a live demonstration. And each time we start LogM, you can either start it from the Project Explorer, or you can start it from the GeoGraphix seismic modeling team. It's got that nice sign over there, and this is the modeling section. That's the advanced synthetic section. We're going to start off from the advanced synthetic, which is the well editor. So I'm going to pull up my well editor right now, and let's see, Windows. So I'm going to pull up my well editor. So this is my well editor, and this is my well. And what do I have? I have a gamma ray curve, I have a density in situ curve, and I have a sonic in situ curve. And when I explained it, I told you that this shelly regions are just water wet, and I have gas in here. So this region is gas filled. So this is the knowledge I have. Right now I don't have a VS, I don't have a shear curve, a shear sonic curve. I do have a porosity from my density. The window to handle this would be a fluid substitution window. Before I go in there, I can show you some of the quick things you can do in LogM. If you did have your shear sonic curve and you wanted to do some quick curve generation, we do have the AVO curve generation. So you can estimate AVO curves quickly off the back if you have some of your information. So these are just quick using the Gardner, Frost, and your Beal-Gaussman relationship. These can be built. So you can get your, and then elastic property relationship. So all of these can be built like that. And you pick what you want, and you can estimate any of those from here too. So that's if you had it, and you just need to get like your Poisson ratio. And you can quickly do that, and you can get your Poisson ratio from your VPVS curve. So that's off the back quick. I'm going to jump into our fluid substitution environment. It's a very interactive session. What it does is it gives you a wizard that walks you through your process. You're going to decide what process you want to do. Most likely, you don't want to estimate your VP curve. And the more estimations you have, the more room for error, because an estimation is a guess. It's an estimate. It's not exact. So you leave yourself room for errors when it comes to modeling with an estimated curve. But that's the nature of the business, and we understand that. I would start with an estimating VS curve because I don't have one. I can go ahead and do a fluid substitution, and each option you pick, different things become available to you. You notice things get grayed out, things become available. So I'm estimating VS. I need to know something about my fluid relationship. Is it VP? Am I going to do a VPVS dry estimation? Is it water wet? If I say it's 100% wet, I can click the 100% in situ wet, and when I change, it goes straight to asking me about my lithology because I have told it about my in situ fluid. If it is not, I can leave that open, and you see that it asks me for my in situ fluid properties at the next stage. It's asking me for things like that, and you can control what interval you're doing the generation for. You can do it by depth or by formation. I'm leaving it by formation. I'm going to say maybe the top to the base. And you can use a control curve as well. You turn a control curve, say a shell volume control curve, just to make sure that you're calculating it in only regions that you're interested in. So you can do that. I mean, actually your Gaussman relationship is more effective in clean sand than it is, and things like that. So you get control of when you want to apply this estimation. It's asked. I mean, the input data is asking you what you want to input, and you get choices on that. Once you do that, like I talked about, you have control of your fluid. In your fluid, like I said, knowledge of your fluid is necessary. If you have a saturation curve, you can use your saturation curve. And right now I don't have one, so it's not on there. Now, if you know advanced, if you have some lab report about your stuff and you really want to use that, and you want to use that, we give you the ability to use the lab results of your fluid to determine the fluid properties. So you can go ahead and put the density and bulk modulus and things like that of the fluid. If you had a curve for it, you can use that too. So you get all that control, temperature, pressure, if it's a constant versus a table versus a gradient, all of that is taken care of. Once the fluid has been taken care of, the next thing you're talking about is the lithology. So just like I talked about earlier, you need to know knowledge of all of these using that, and LogM would take that information and would use it in doing your fluid substitution. So that's that information over there, your shell properties and sand properties. And right now it's saying shelly sand, so I'm assuming it's only shell and sand. So if I have if it's all 100%, if I have 20% shell, then I have 80% sand. So it's using that mentality, and you can pick your shell volume because I have one. Now this is where it becomes. This is actually one of the very critical part in your estimation is your VPVS trend. It's going to use that trend in determining your VS. And right now, what we have is set for is the Greenberg-Castagna coefficient for VPVS relationship. And you can, if you've done work in your area and you have a VPVS relationship, you have the coefficients for your field, you can change this, and this would affect how your VPVS relationship is going to get built. So this is where you can control that VPVS trend. So this is where you get a lot of control on that. So you not only control your fluid properties, you control your lithology, and you control the VPVS trend on it. Once you're done with that, the next stage is reporting this data, and you get a choice of either updating the curve. So if I had a curve and I want to update it, you can update the curve, you can create a new curve. So I can create a new curve that says sonic mean if I want to. So you can type, you see how what is not, right now we're creating VS. So you see VS and Poisson ratio. You create a new VS, you have a new Poisson ratio. So you see those two curves are the only things that are available to me, and you can do that. So you can change all of that. You see all of that is available. Your data that you have gets reported. All the input, you can select what input, you can select the input and the report. So every of that gets reported. So you can actually see a text report, which is actually nice in terms of keeping up with what you've done and how the software is handling your stuff because it's going to be an iterative process. So you're going to do stuff like that, and that will be how you calculate your VS. and I'm going to go back. I mean, I've already done that, and after that, once you've calculated your VS, you can start doing fluid substitution, which is the same thing. You switch over to fluid substitution, and the menu just changes now. The only difference is it knows your in-situ fluid. It's going to ask you what are you substituting with. The same process goes on. It's an iterative process, and you can keep it going. Even after doing a fluid substitution, you can start talking about seeing what the effect of saturation or the effect of shell volume. You can start doing that. So some people will go and say, I want to see what it looks like when it's 10%, 10% water, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. You can build the curves for each water saturation. You can build a curve for each shell volume percentage. I mean, you can do any of those computations. You can build any of those scenarios and see how they affect your response. So you get all that control in here, and all you'll be doing is creating the curve name, naming it properly, keeping your nomenclature clean. I mean, it's very necessary. Housekeeping, it's funny how housekeeping can make the smartest person look dumb, and it's one of the. I mean, it's nice once you have that thing clean, you can blaze through and do some really good work. I mean, it's just the same process, and that keeps going on. So it's once you have this. Once it runs, it's going to generate those curves. One of the last things I'll talk about in the fluid substitution before we leave it is our robust estimation. So when you turn it on, you see that you can modify. If sometimes it's going to calculate and those numbers are not going to be realistic. I mean, you have those Voigt and Royce averages. I mean, limits to your bulk modulus, which is limit with which it actually can exist. So I mean, the software is going to go back and iteratively, if you want, depending on if you wanted to use the limits or you put your own limit, it's going to iteratively bring your data back within reason. So it's just saying, hey, you calculated it, it's not realistic. Let's bring it back within reason. What would be nicer to do is to find out why it isn't within reason, but we do give you the option to bring it back to the realm of reality. So you can always recalculate your VS and your VP. You see that? I can always recalculate those. You want to do this before you start doing the fluid substitution. So that's the idea, is you want to put your VS and your VP within reason before you, and our VP is in situ. We ran this in the log, so this one we wouldn't touch, but the VS that you computed, say you computed this, and it doesn't look right, you want to redo this to get it within, get it within that limit. So we give you the ability to do that. And if you hit the help file, you get to see explanations to the equations and what the software actually does to bring you back within reason. So that's the good thing about the help file. Anyone that works with GeoGraphix will tell you how beautiful those help files are. They are the best in the business. And once we've done that, I'm going to show you what the results look like. I'm going to go to the, I just switched the view, so I'm just going to go to the same well where the curve's done. Sorry, you got to see a little sneak peek of the results that we're going to go into next. Well, you can see off the bat, I have run this in 3 different scenarios. I've run it in situ, it was saturated, it was water saturated, and then it was wet all the way through, and then gas in the middle, and you see the different scenarios that I run in. My in situ is my gas, and it's the red. I run a light oil. You see the light oil in green, and you see my wet in green. My wet over there. So you can see the different effects. You can see obviously the Poisson ratio is being affected greatly by my gas. You see my gas drop in my Poisson ratio there. You see my VP affected by my gas. Not so much my VS. The VS is not so responsive to it. The density, you see the density effect as well. So you can see off the bat, I'm able to run 3 scenarios. I have the wet, I have the gas, I have the oil in here. So that's the product. This is the product of your fluid substitution. Now, once you've run all of this, we can now start talking. We now have a VP curve, we have a VS curve, we have a Poisson ratio curve because we have a VP and a VS. Using that relationship, we can now start talking about building an AVO stack. AVO is the amplitude variation with offset, and lithology and fluids affect how this variation goes with offset. So it's one of the tools that is nice in the tool of a geophysicist to start observing trends that he thinks he sees, like a gas effect or a lithology change. I mean, it's been used it's becoming very very common tool now, being used quite a lot. So we give you the ability to build those stacks, and you can see off the stacks the relationship. And that would be in the AVO, AVA stacks. You can either do amplitude variation with offset or amplitude variation with angle. You get control of all of that. You control what curves you're going to use, density and all of that, your Poisson ratio. You pick your curve, you pick your parameters, and you can apply your check shot, and you can pick what stacks you use. You get all of control of all of those, RC method, and the wavelet you're going to use. If you extracted one, you can use the extracted one. If we have quite an array for you, you can pick the phase and frequency, and what you see right here is a result of my AVO for my gas response. I have the AVO response, and you can see it's a classic type 3. It's a type 3 sand, and you can see the classic type 3 response on there. You can change the presentation. I have this just black and white with the wriggle traces. You can color fill it. It's the same thing I have over here, color fill, and you can see the different stacks. You can see my 0 to 4,000 feet stack, 4,000, 8,000 feet stack, 8,000, 12,000. So I did a near stack, mid stack, and the far stack. So you see, this is just the same thing we've seen earlier differently. I can do that. I'm going to plot this, and I've done that. I plotted this, and I keep it on the side. I have a plot of it. This is a plot of the same thing. Now I'm going to compare what this would look like in gas versus water. So I'm going to go AVO, and I'm just going to switch this to wet. Say it's water instead, and I'm going to call it wet, and I'm going to say I'm fine with all the rest, and I'll say OK. And that's fine. I want just those, and I'll take the reflection coefficient, and I'll say OK, and I'll put those in. Off the back, you can see I'm going to put both stacks on the screen, so you can compare. Okay. You can see quite the difference in the stacks between you see your top side between the water and the gas response. So obviously you can see a difference in your response. So you get the ability to play with that, and you can start looking at those different things. You can start running different scenarios and seeing their effect. Now this would be it. What we did is we talked about fluid substitution and VS generation, and how you can do that in our advanced log synthetic. We talked about building AVO stacks, and looking at them, you get control of the properties in terms of coloring and things like that. And now I'm going to switch it over. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to switch it over to our modeling section. So this, and let's see, let's go window, and I'll say first model. This is where I got it from, would be here. Stratigraphic modeling. We're coming in here, and we're going to build a stratigraphic model. I have already done one just for purpose of the class, and you get a feel for it. All it is really what we're going to build a cross section, and the software is going to interpolate the curves between all the information you've given it to determine the velocity, and then calculate your synthetic trace. So that's the way this software it works. So you can see the well parameters in that cross section I have built. It's going to ask me for my X position, my start depth, and depth. So it's asking you for all of that. So your X position, see I spaced them out 10, 20, 200, 360. You can see the depth I start them in. It's the X. That's the top on the base. And you can do all of that, and what it's going to do is going to interpolate this curve accordingly. You get to control. You get to bring your formation tops that you picked in your LogM regular well editor. You can bring them in. If you want to work on the well, you can quickly right-click on that well, and you can start working on that well. You can open that well in well editor, do some work on it. You can condition it, fix it, whatever you want to do. You can do all of that, and it's going to do it, and it's going to update interactively. It's going to update that on your cross section. It's not going to affect the well that you had to start with. You can replace that well. You get all that flexibility. So you get the idea of it. And like I said, what it's going to do is it's going to interpolate across And now what I'm going to do right now is I have built a channel. I've inputted the channel in there, and you can see I'm going to show you how easy it is to do that. So I'm going to come in and actually do the same in the bottom. So that's my full one, and I'm going to split it. I'm going to say split relationship, and it's going to give me the ability to put a bottom part. So I'm going to put a bottom part in there. Let's say F4. So that's how easy it is to put one of those. And you get a chance to color the things if you want. So I can add body, and I'm just going to add bodies in there. Just let's keep it consistent. So sandstone, I'm going to put a sandstone there. I'm going to put the sandstone there. Maybe I put a sandstone in there. Put a sandstone in there. So you can get all of that. You can call it shell. I call it shell and put a shell there. Put a shell there. Shell there. So you see, I put it. So I mean, you can do all of that, and that makes for a good cross-section view. After doing all of this, you'd have to give the properties. You'd have to put in the properties of this isolated body. So I'm going to go ahead and delete. I'm going to go ahead and delete what I just created. I'm just deleting that correlation, so it's gone. That's how easy it is to delete a correlation. But then you start to do things like now model set isolated body properties. And when I pick that body, you see the information I've given to it. I told it the velocity is 2,500, the density is that, Poisson ratio is that. You can change all of that. You can put the data in and you can change all of that. So you get quite a good control on it. Once you've done that, you can hit generate model. Now it's going to ask you, what's the stratigraphic relationship? Is it stretching or squeezing? Is it being eroded off the top, eroded off the bottom? So you see the top removal, bottom removal. Each horizon, each formation top, you're going to tell it what's the relationship to the next one. As if I look at C, it switches to top, so it's asking me how does that work. And I'm just going to go back and switch it to S. S just says a stretch squeeze, they're all conformable. And at that point, I pick the number of traces I want. The number of traces is going to ask how much interpolation you're going to get across, the logs you want to use. You can pick whichever, sonic and density log you want, your wavelet, and then you pick your datum of elevation and replacement velocity. At this point, you can generate a model, and you see that's the model I have. I'm gonna go to the data here. I'm gonna turn off the color for right now and hit OK, and you can see my response right there. And you can see off the back, you can see where my channel was, and you can see how my channel has affected my response. You can see the interpolation that is done across all the wells. You can see the interpolation. Right now, I have 64 traces, because that's what I requested for. It's going to interpolate it across, so you get a feel for that. That's the idea behind it. You can start looking, if you had a gas and things like that, you can start looking at the gas effect in your cross section if you switch the middle curves, or like a fluid effect, fluid change. So you change the logs and you can change that. That's one of the nice things you can do. You can say, okay, fine, I won't even want to take it a step further. You can build the AVO stacks for it. So I can go model an AVO stacks for it too. I can build the AVO the same way, and you can generate your AVO stack. So you can create your near stack, mid stack, offset, far stack, full stack. You can do all of that and generate that model. I'll do 64 instead, and you can do that. You pick the logs you want to use, and you can generate those. You can generate the AVO stats as well. So it's going to generate the AVO model. So you can do that, and you have the AVO model right there, which this is your AVO model, and you can save those to SegWi, and you can load them and look at them in any module you want to. So that's the idea there. You've seen your stratigraphic effect. You can see the formation, how they behave. If I told them they're conformable and hence they become conformable, if I told it they were different, the software will behave differently. You get an idea. You can try it out yourself. You can save this to SegWi. You can load it in any module that handles SegWi. That's a cross section you can use. Both the regular cross section and the AVO stacks. So you get a feel for that. Finally, I'm going to show you what I did in terms of building a wedge model. It's the same idea that goes into the wedge model. Let's see, and I'm going to pull up my wedge model. So this is my wedge model, and all I've done is I have put the same well 3 times. I know the thickness of the field is about 150 feet. I divided half of it over there, and I pinched it out at the corner. I can put a little more if I want to, but it wouldn't make so much of a difference because I'm going to interpolate anyways, and I'm doing the same thing by putting more. It's just interpolated. You control what the length of this is as well as the depth of the wedge. Once you've built that wedge, once you've built this, you can start, it's just the same process. You go ahead and generate your model. It's going to ask you how is the wedge working, and we're going to assume that the wedge is conformable, so it's just stretching out by itself, it's not being eroded, and we're just going to keep that relationship going right there, and that would be it. And you hit done. You pick number of traces, I'd say 72 traces. Use the sonic and density log, which is fine, and maybe let's switch it out and say oil instead. Oil. Maybe wet. Let's try wet. I like wet. It's actually raining quite a bit in Houston, so back all week, so let's go wet. And okay, and you can generate that model. So that's your wedge model right there. I'm going to make it a full screen. And now you can start looking for your tuning effect and see where you see where you can, the minimum thickness with which you can actually resolve that sand. Now this was not done neatly. I didn't neatly clean. Let's see. I was right. I don't think let's select those logs and just make them in situ. I don't think I conditioned those logs for the wets, so I'll just leave them in situ. You get the feel for it, and you can build that, and that's just the idea behind it. You can see more, and you can do your work there. And what's nice about it is it's quick, easy to do, and you can save this file, save the segwise, print CGM, so you get all that control and you can make it all pretty. So in conclusion, what I have done is I have interactively showed you how we can detect, analyze, and understand the presence of fluid and lithology in our reservoir on our seismic response. I showed you how to do a fluid substitution and how this fluid substitution effect can be seen in your AVO stats. I showed you that, and then we talked about showed you how to build seismic cross section and how you can get fundamental. How you can set it up to get your tuning information, and how you can observe the effect of your stratigraphy on your seismic. So by doing that channel sand and seeing how the seismic cross section works, it gives me a template to look at my seismic cross section in any of my seismic modules to see, oh, that response looks similar, and you can start building relationships across.